Food power is supposed to come from land, rich soil, flat plains you can plant to the horizon and never run out. The bigger the country, the more it feeds the world. That's just how it works. Then there's the Netherlands. Half of it is in a permanent fight with the sea, and a quarter of it sits below sea level. Not near it, below it. No Midwest, no prairie, no room to waste a single field. And it's the second largest agricultural exporter on the entire planet, behind only the United States. In 2025, more than 137 billion euros in food and farm goods crossed its borders. Out of a country you could drive across in a morning. So how does a place this small end up helping feed the world? Start with the size, because the size is the whole problem. The Netherlands covers about 16,000 square miles. Lay it over the eastern United States and it disappears. It's Maryland, give or take. But it's packed. 17 million people live on that sliver of land, which makes it one of the most crowded countries in Europe. Land here isn't a thing you have plenty of. It's a thing you run out of. Then there's the part that should end the story before it starts. Roughly a quarter of the country sits below sea level. About 17% of the entire landmass didn't exist until people pumped the water off it and built it up from the seabed. The productive western core, the part doing the heavy lifting, is a delta that only stays dry because the Dutch keep it dry every single day, with dikes and pumps and 1,000 years of stubbornness. There's a Dutch saying, God made the world, but the Dutch made the Netherlands. They're not really joking. 3 great rivers, the Rhine, the Meuse, and the Scheldt, pour into the North Sea right through this country. That delivers rich silt, sure. It also delivers flooding, salt creeping into the soil, and a coastline that would very much like its land back. Now line up what this place does not have. No continental interior to spread out into. No oil money to spray green across a desert. No frontier to plow under. If Dutch farming works at all, it can't possibly work the American way. The way that assumes you've got land to burn. And yet, it's the number 2 food exporter on Earth by value. That's not a fun fact. It's a violation of the rule that land equals power. Ask the internet how the Dutch pull this off, and the answer comes back fast. Greenhouses. And honestly, yeah, that answer is largely right. Drive through the western Netherlands, and you'll pass seas of glass stretching to the horizon, whole landscapes roofed over. Inside, the climate is controlled down to the degree, the humidity, the exact wavelength of light. Tomatoes, peppers, and flowers grow in conditions that have almost nothing to do with the weather outside. The yields per square meter are the kind of numbers that make open field farmers wince. This is biology, run like a factory, and the Dutch are the best on earth at it. Behind the glass sits the brain of the operation. Wageningen University is arguably the top agricultural research institution in the world, and it feeds a tight loop of science, farming, and export that most countries can only envy. That pipeline is real, and it matters. There's a third layer people notice too. A lot of what Dutch food export means isn't crops pulled from Dutch soil. It's product that lands in Rotterdam, gets processed, packed, and shipped back out. Take 2025's jump in export value. A big chunk of it came from cocoa, where prices spiked after bad harvests in West Africa. The Netherlands doesn't grow a single cocoa bean. It imports them, turns them into butter and powder and chocolate, and sells them on. Cocoa is now its second biggest agricultural export. So an acre under Dutch glass can outproduce acres of open field in a sunnier country. But here's where this answer runs out of road. Technology explains how the Dutch farm this intensely. It doesn't explain why a country this small was ever forced to. Plenty of nations bought greenhouses. Plenty built research universities. None of them became number 2. So the tech is part of it, and it's not enough on its own. To find the rest, stop looking at the greenhouses and look at what the map is doing to the people inside them. When every hectare has to be drained, reclaimed, and defended from the sea, that land gets expensive. Not expensive like a luxury, expensive like an industrial input you can't afford to waste. Growing low-value, bulk crops on ground that costs this much to keep dry would be economic suicide. So, the geography quietly rules out an entire way of farming. You can't do it the cheap, sprawling way because there's no cheap, sprawling land. The only move left is to wring maximum value out of every square meter. The greenhouses aren't a quirky national hobby, they're what the map demands. Now add the second thing the delta gives you. The same rivers that threaten the land also connect it to a continent. Rotterdam is the busiest port in Europe, sitting right where the Rhine meets the sea, and the Rhine runs straight into the industrial heart of Germany and beyond. So a Dutch grower isn't shipping into a small home market. They're sitting on the on-ramp to the entire European interior. That changes what the country even is. The Netherlands doesn't just grow food and sell it. It's the place where food from everywhere gets finished, sorted, and sent onward. A quarter of Dutch agricultural exports go to Germany alone. Add Belgium and France, and you're approaching half the total, all of it moving overland into markets right next door. Put the two together. No spare land, so you farm at maximum intensity. Best port position in Europe, so you move enormous volume through the door. A landlocked country of the same size could do the first thing. Only this one can do both at once. And that's the real answer. The Netherlands didn't out-farm the world because it had great land. It out-exported the world because it had almost no room to farm badly, and the best seed in Europe for selling whatever it grew. Many people believe this whole model is breaking, that the Dutch push too hard and the system is coming apart. If you've seen footage of tractors blocking highways and manure dumped in front of government buildings, you've seen why. They're not wrong. The model has a bill, and it's being paid right now. It's called the nitrogen crisis. Cram that many animals and that much fertilizer onto that little land, and the nitrogen has to go somewhere. It goes into the soil, the water, and the air as ammonia. Dutch farms carry something like 4 times the animal mass per hectare of the European average. And agriculture is responsible for roughly half of the nitrogen falling on the country, enough that in most of the nation's protected nature reserves, the pollution now runs past safe levels. That triggered a genuine national rupture. Courts blocked construction because the country was over its nitrogen limits. The government proposed slashing emissions in half by 2030, floated buying out and closing thousands of farms, and set aside tens of billions of euros to do it. Farmers revolted. A farmer protest party surged out of nowhere and won big in provincial elections. This isn't a footnote. It's one of the defining political fights in the modern Netherlands. But look closely at what the crisis actually proves. You only get a nitrogen revolt this sharp in a country that pushed biological productivity right to the physical edge, on a postage stamp map. Places with extra land can externalize the damage. It spreads out, dilutes, stays quiet for decades. The Netherlands has no extra land. It hit the wall in public, early and hard. The same constraint that built the export machine is now straining it. The map set the rise. The map is setting the collision, too. So go back to the puzzle. A country the size of Maryland, a quarter of it under the waterline, the second biggest food exporter on the planet. The lesson isn't that the Dutch are simply more clever than everyone else, though their engineering is something to behold. It's that a food superpower doesn't have to be the country with the most acres. It can be the country where geography forces efficiency, where there's no room to farm lazily, and a port position that multiplies whatever that discipline produces. The best farmland on Earth could make a country complacent. Almost no farmland, in exactly the right spot, did the opposite here. It deleted every easy option and left only the hard, productive one. The Dutch model clearly worked. The question now is whether a system built on pushing every limit can pull back from one of those limits, without losing the thing the map rewarded in the first place. If you want to see the opposite version of this story, a country with the best farmland on Earth that geography turned into a trap instead of an engine, the Argentina video tells that story. I'll link it here. The world has a structure. Let's keep finding it.